Welcome back to Creating Cooperative Kids. I'm your host, Bill Corbett. While many of you know that the act of forgiveness can be healing, there's something even more healing when we get the apology from another person that we feel we deserve. With me in the studio to discuss this topic is Valerie Utton, author of the book Letters of Apology, How to Stop Waiting for Permission to Be the Wonderful Person You Are. Welcome to the show, Valerie.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me
Thanks
here.
so much for being here. This is such an important topic because what I've learned over time, Valerie, is we have the need for the apology. We have that buried inside of us. And what people don't realize is it becomes a part of our operating system. Even though we go, fine, I don't need to hear it, but it's buried in our subconscious and it can actually impact the way we live, our relationships, everything, if we have unfinished business with that. How do you feel about that?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the biggest differences too is like when the apology that you've been trying to get, or the one you've been waiting your whole life for, when you needed it. The younger you needed it, the more likely it is to impact your life. You know, if you and I are at the grocery store and somebody cuts a line in front of us, we're not going to get mad about that. We don't necessarily need an apology for that. But if you're 5 years old and your mom is having a bad day and she yells at you, you know, that if you don't understand what was going on, you don't understand that she's had a bad day, she doesn't realize that she said something to you that has hurt you, then that's the kind of thing that you carry on, because a 5-year-old is just going to spend all his or her time trying to figure out what happened and why it happened and what can he do to fix it. And of course, there's nothing he can do to fix it because there's nothing he needs to do to fix it. So I think it depends on what age that it happens. And the younger that it happens, the other thing that happens is that people tend to repeat the same patterns over time. So if the 5-year-old isn't able to make mom happy, isn't able to fix it then, you know, likely situations will keep presenting where it gets recreated and recreated, because we tend to always try to fix those things. We want to fix it and make it right because of who we are. It's just something we do instinctively. And with an apology, if mom says, oh, you know, oh, I yelled at you and I didn't mean to do that because I was having a really, really bad day and I said something to you that I shouldn't, and I'm very sorry for that. It wasn't your fault. It didn't have anything to do with you. Then we can let go. Then we can say, oh, phew, it wasn't my fault. I didn't deserve that. I'm still a good person. My mom still loves me, and life can go on from there.
Because it's unfinished business we have inside of us.
Oh.
And sometimes parents don't realize how powerful an apology is.
Oh,
and they go, what? My daughter knows I'm sorry. How many times have I heard that? But
yeah.
It's interesting. You wrote the book, The Letters of Apology. And one of the things that I noticed here when I was reading through your book, that if you don't mind, I just want to ask you about it. It says,
sure.
It says, what if instead of taking someone else's actions personally and letting the chain reaction continue throughout our day, or worse, our life, we were able to stop long enough to remind ourselves that people do what they do because of the things going on in their life. What I love about that is we have our perception of what someone did or said. They have their own perception. We don't have the whole picture, do we? We don't know what's going on, and we get attached to we have to get that apology. But like you said, there's stuff going on that we may not be aware of.
Right. You know, everybody has their own life story going on, and when somebody does something to you, our immediate kind of reaction is to say, what did I do to deserve this? So if you can take a second to stop and look at somebody else, you might realize that, oh gosh, they just lost their job. I mean, there's something we were talking about in the economy, people losing jobs, and they just lose it one day. You just never know what's going on behind somebody else's door. And we can't ever really know. We can catch glimpses of it. We can, you know, speculate. We can make stories. But the only story we really know is our own. So if you allow somebody else to tell your story by sitting there waiting for them to finish it for you with an apology, you might be waiting a long time.
You know, it's interesting. In the book, Stephen R. Covey wrote the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Awesome book. And there's a story he related in there where he was taking a train. And it was in the city, and he was taking the train to go somewhere. And there was, on the train, in the car with him, was a man and his 3 children. I think there were 3 children. And they were acting out. They were jumping over the seats and annoying people. And he kept looking at them and kept looking at the man going, what is wrong with you? I mean, he didn't say that, he was thinking it. How can you let your kids get like this? What's wrong with you? And then finally he couldn't take it anymore. He spoke up and he said, you know, could you please get your children under control? And the man said, I'm sorry, we just came from the hospital where their mother died, and they really don't know how to behave. I apologize. It made him feel very strange and realizing, like you said, we don't know what's going on the other side. You know, I want to bring up something because parents watch this show, and this is a show about creating cooperative kids. Oftentimes I'm asked, how do I make my kids say they're sorry? Well, children are different than adults because children are learning, they're adapting, they don't get it yet, so many things. So one of the things that I encourage parents to do is when you're trying to teach your child to say they're sorry, the first step is to model it for them rather than bludgeoning them into saying, because you know what parents do, we see them on the playground or in the schoolyard, they go, you go tell that little boy you're sorry right now. So even if the parent can get the child to go over there, they don't feel it. It's not sincere. They're following through with an action. The best thing you can do is model it for them. So that means every time the parent doesn't follow through or it requires a makeup to a child to say, I'm sorry I wasn't here. I'm sorry I didn't do that. And if two children are fighting, or let's say one child pushed another child down, the parent comes up, it's okay for the parent to say to the other child, I'm sorry that that happened to you, in front of your child, because they will learn from that model in an unconditionally loving way. The child is more likely to pick up that habit and then to say, I'm sorry. And it's far more effective than forcing a child. What do you think about that?
Well, I think there's, when a child does something that they're supposed to say they're sorry for, I think it's a great opportunity because everybody has feelings. We can't deny feelings. So as children progress in age, you can start by saying, okay, I know that you have these feelings, like you're mad, and today you hit somebody, but there are other things that you might be able to do instead of hitting. What are some other things that you can do? So as the child progresses, you know, you can get more involved in that. But even when they're little, if so, you talk about alternatives. You can talk to an adult. You can step away. You give them their choices. And then if they hit somebody again, then you have the opportunity to say, okay, well, this is the choice that you made. And you start working them into the whole idea of these are choices. Feelings, we don't always have choices about what we feel, but we always have choices about what we do. And that way you can help teach your children other behaviors. And the one thing that you were saying about modeling it for kids too, one of the things that I think is that children do not see their parents apologize. So one of my favorite ideas is that, you know, you have a fight, husband and wife have a fight. The kids go to bed, the parents are fighting. The kids get up the next morning, the parents are fine. Nothing's gone. I mean, nothing, they're not mad anymore. So what do the kids think? Do they know that their parents apologize to each other? Or do they think, well, if you go to bed and sleep on it, then everything's fine in the morning?
It's such an awesome
If we
point.
don't see, if
makeup.
children don't see the apologies, if they don't hear them, how do they learn them?
That's so
You know,
important because you're right. Parents fight, parents argue, and they don't see the makeup oftentimes.
No.
If there is a makeup. We only got a minute left, but you know, I think it's awesome how you pulled together all these letters of apology, and then you added stuff in there. You commented on the importance of apologies and how those play an important role in our lives. So I wish you the best of luck. And there's too many of us out there that still we're waiting for the apology we never got. Just understand how important it is and do the best you can to move forward. I hope you will take a moment and examine any areas in your life that may require an apology to help someone move on. But one deed that rarely sees apologies is the act of domestic violence. Coming up in the next segment, we're going to talk with a domestic violence youth advocate who will help us understand why adults remain in dangerous situations and the impacts of DV on children. We'll be right back.